They put 3 words on a 12-foot screen in front of 300 wedding guests. Barren. Divorced. Worthless. My mother laughed into her champagne glass. My brother, the groom, looked away. And my father stood at the microphone and said, "We just thought everyone deserved the full picture of our family." I didn't cry. I didn't run. I opened my phone, scrolled to a message I'd typed 3 days earlier, and pressed send. What happened next didn't just end the reception. It ended 30 years of silence, and dismantled everything my parents had spent their lives building. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 36 years old. I'm a forensic accountant at one of the top financial consulting firms in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm the daughter my family spent 2 decades pretending didn't exist. Let me take you back to the night everything started, 6 weeks before my brother Daniel's wedding. It was a Wednesday. Late. I was at my desk reviewing compliance documents for a corporate audit. Coffee going cold. Rain against the window. Normal Wednesday. My phone lit up. My cousin Lily, the only person in my family who ever told me the truth. "Sarah. I need to tell you something. They're planning something at the wedding. Something about you." I overheard Mom and Aunt Carol talking in the kitchen. "You need to be ready." I set my coffee down. "What kind of something?" "A slideshow. They said it'll be funny." "Sarah, it's not funny." I sat with that message for a long time. 6 weeks later, I was driving back to Greensboro for the first time in 2 years. Let me tell you what the previous 2 years looked like. At 28, I married Ryan Calloway, a man my parents had welcomed into the family with open arms, a rehearsal dinner at the country club, and a wedding toast from my father that lasted 11 minutes. Ryan was charming at dinner parties. Behind closed doors, he monitored my phone, controlled our joint account, and had an opinion about every friend I was allowed to keep. I left at 31. My parents' response was not concern. It was calculation. "You humiliated this family. You couldn't keep one marriage together." Do you know what people are saying? What people were saying stopped mattering to me around the same time I started sleeping through the night again. At 33, a doctor told me that due to a medical condition, having biological children would be extremely unlikely. I processed this alone. In a clinic waiting room in Charlotte. With a paper cup of water and a 2-year-old magazine about home renovations. Somehow, my mother found out. I never learned exactly how. But within a month the information had traveled through our family network the way bad news always does, faster than kindness and louder than love. I stopped attending family gatherings after that. Not from anger. From necessity. For 2 years I built my life quietly. I earned a promotion. I bought a townhouse in Plaza Midwood. I started running in the mornings and learned to cook real food and slept without dread. I built something that was entirely mine and entirely real. And then Lily called. My younger brother Daniel was marrying Ashley Harrington, a warm, genuine woman from a well-regarded family in Virginia. Her mother, Eleanor Harrington, chaired the Harrington Heritage Foundation, one of the most respected philanthropic organizations in the Mid-Atlantic region. My parents had been planning this wedding for 3 years. The venue alone seated 300 guests. When the invitation arrived, thick cream cardstock, my name printed in clean serif type, I almost didn't go. But Lily said one thing that changed my mind. "Your grandmother is coming, Sarah. She's been asking about you for months. She keeps your graduation photo in her nightstand drawer. She's 82. Please come." I booked a hotel. Not my parents' house. A hotel 2 miles from the venue. And I called my closest friend Claire, now a senior IT specialist at a tech firm in Raleigh, and told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "If you walk into that room, you walk in prepared. Not hopeful. Prepared." "I know." "Then let's make sure you're not walking in blind." 3 weeks before the wedding, I pulled up a client file at my office. Harrington Heritage Foundation. Nonprofit Financial Compliance Review. Our firm had been conducting an audit of the Harrington Foundation for 5 months. My name was on every document. My analysis had identified a significant reporting discrepancy that saved the foundation from a costly regulatory review. Client contact, Eleanor Harrington. Ashley's mother. Daniel's future mother-in-law. She knew my work. She knew my name. We had exchanged dozens of emails and 3 video calls. She knew me as S. Mitchell, senior analyst. She did not know my face. We had never met in person. I sat with this information for a long time. I didn't plan to use it. I'm not my parents. I don't turn relationships into leverage. But if everything fell apart, I was not a stranger to the most influential woman in that room. Claire did what Claire does. She looked up the venue, identified the AV company handling the reception, and found that they were short 1 technician for the evening. I applied online. They called back in 18 minutes. Claire, you don't have to. Sarah. You're walking into a room where your family has already loaded the weapon. I'm just making sure you have access to the safety switch. By the following Thursday, Claire was confirmed as freelance AV support for the Harrington Mitchell wedding reception. She would have direct access to the projector, the USB inputs, and the soundboard. I built a presentation. Not a retaliation. The record. Slide 1, my certifications. Certified Forensic Accountant. Magna cum laude, UNC Charlotte. Slide 2, my promotion letter. Senior Financial Analyst, Mitchell Holloway Consulting. Regional Director, Southeast Division. Slide 3, a photo of me at the firm's annual recognition dinner, standing at a podium, mid-sentence, fully alive. Slide 4, a client commendation letter on Harrington Foundation letterhead. Sarah's analysis demonstrated exceptional precision and protected our organization from significant financial and reputational exposure. Eleanor Harrington, Chair. Slide 5, white text on black. You called me a failure. I lead a team of 14. You called me broken. I rebuilt everything from scratch. You called me worthless. I know what I'm worth. I saved it to a USB drive and handed it to Claire on Thursday evening. You're not going to war, she said. I know. But if they fire the first shot, I'll be ready to answer it. For days before the wedding, my mother added me to a family group text. The first message was a preview. A slideshow. Old photos of me, stretched, filtered unflattering. Cartoon stickers overlaid. Bold text centered on each frame. Divorced Barren ran off the family disappointment. My aunt replied with 3 laughing emojis. My mother typed, keep it light, it's just for fun. She did not say, this is wrong. She did not say, take it down. She said, keep it light. As though there is a light way to project your daughter's medical history onto a 12-foot screen for 300 strangers. I screenshotted every message. Sent them to Claire without a word. Then I opened my laptop and added one final slide to the presentation. Slide 6, white text on black. The measure of a family is not how loudly they celebrate their favorites. It is how quietly they destroy everyone else. The wedding morning arrived cold and clear. The venue was a restored historic estate outside Greensboro, white columns, manicured grounds, the kind of place that shows up in Southern Living magazine. Inside, crystal chandeliers over white linen. A 12-foot projection screen behind the head table. I wore a deep burgundy dress. Not the pale, shapeless beige shift my mother had shipped to my hotel with a handwritten note, something understated would be appropriate for the occasion. I left it hanging in the closet. Inside the venue, 300 guests filled round tables draped in white. My family anchored the front. The Harringtons sat beside them in a place of honor. Eleanor Harrington, composed, silver-haired, in a midnight blue jacket, sat with the stillness of someone who had attended enough events to know exactly what they were watching. I was seated at table 17. back corner. Next to the service corridor. Every time the kitchen door swung open, a burst of noise and clatter hit my back. My table mates were distant relatives who had been told nothing about me and an older couple who spent the entire appetizer course discussing their recent Alaskan cruise. A woman across the table leaned in. "And what do you do, dear?" "Financial consulting," I said. She nodded and turned back to her neighbor. The toasts began. Daniel spoke beautifully. Genuine, warm, a slight tremor in his voice that told me he meant every word. Then my father took the microphone. He thanked the Harringtons. He praised Daniel. He talked about family legacy, the Mitchell name, the values they had passed down. Then he looked toward the back of the room, toward table 17, and said, "We're grateful that all of our family could join us tonight. Even those who took their own path." Polite, uncertain laughter rippled through the room. My mother caught my eye from the front table and smiled. Small. Satisfied. The smile of someone watching a trap they set a long time ago finally closing. The lights dimmed. The maid of honor took the microphone. "And now, a very special presentation from the Mitchell family." The screen lit up. Soft piano music. Baby photos of Daniel. Childhood birthday parties. Little League. The Mitchell family on vacation at the Outer Banks, my parents smiling, Daniel mid-laugh, the ocean bright behind them. I was not in a single photo. The room warmed. Soft applause. Daniel and Ashley at a vineyard upstate. At Christmas with the Harringtons. At a mountain cabin last winter. Each image earned another round of gentle clapping. Then the music shifted. Playful. A drumroll sound effect. And now, let's meet the whole family. My cousin Rachel, who had designed the slides, grinned from her table. My mother leaned back in her chair with the expression of someone settling in for their favorite part. Under the table, my phone was already in my hand. The message to Claire was typed and waiting. One word. Begin. I made myself a promise. If the next slide was harmless, an old photo with a gentle caption, any fragment of decency, even one, I would not press it. I would sit through whatever came. I would go home. I would give them tonight. One last chance to be decent. The screen changed. My face. A photo from my mid-20s. Grainy, unflattering angle. Cartoon graphics overlaid. High school sweetheart dropout. Nervous laughter moved through the room. Next slide. Divorced. The laughter grew. The kind that feeds itself. Next. Ran away from her family. Someone at table 6 snorted into their champagne. My father had already turned back to Mr. Harrington Sr. and resumed a conversation about the real estate market. As though what was happening 12 feet behind him was the social equivalent of a party game. Next slide. Barren. The word filled the screen in bold white letters. The room went oddly quiet for a moment, the shocked kind, where people realize they've been laughing at something they shouldn't have. Then a few more laughs broke through. Uneasy. Following. Paige leaned into the mic from the head table. Don't worry, Sarah. It's all just family humor. My mother swirled her wine. Eyes on me. Waiting. My father looked up from his conversation just long enough to catch my gaze and say, quietly, from across the room. Lighten up, sweetheart. Eleanor Harrington was not laughing. I could see it clearly from table 17. She set her glass down on the table with a quiet, deliberate click. Her jaw tightened. She looked at my father. Then at the screen. Then across the room, at me. I looked down at my phone. Begin. I pressed send. 3 seconds. The slideshow froze. The screen went black. Rachel frowned from her table. Technical issue, can someone? Behind the AV booth, Claire pulled the family's USB from the projector and inserted mine. Steady hands. No hesitation. The screen lit up again. Clean white text on a dark background. The real Sarah Mitchell. The room went silent. Not the polite kind. The total kind, where every conversation stopped simultaneously and 300 people turned to look at the same thing. My father stood up. What is this? Turn it off now. The remote had been disabled. The power cutoff was in a locked utility closet. Claire had locked it 35 minutes ago. For the first time in 30 years, my family could not turn me off. Slide 1. My certifications. My degree. My name in clean official print. Murmurs began across the room. Slide 2. My promotion letter. Senior Director. Regional Lead. Southeast Division. Someone at the front table put their fork down. Slide 3. Me at the recognition dinner, standing at the podium, mid-sentence, completely alive. A woman near table 5 turned in her chair to look at me. Then back at the screen. Then at me again. Slide 4. The Harrington Foundation Commendation Letter. Sarah's analysis demonstrated exceptional precision and protected our organization from significant financial and reputational exposure. Eleanor Harrington, Chair, Harrington Heritage Foundation. The room shifted. Eleanor Harrington's hand stopped halfway to her glass. She read the letter on the screen. She read her own name. She set her glass down slowly. Slide 5. You called me a failure. I lead a team of 14. You called me broken. I rebuilt everything from scratch. You called me worthless. I know what I'm worth. I stood up from table 17. I didn't walk to the stage. I didn't reach for a microphone. I simply stood, in the corner, beside the kitchen door, and looked toward the front of the room. 300 faces. Champagne going flat. The piano music long since faded. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't leave this family. I was pushed out. My voice was steady, conversational, the way I present findings to a boardroom on a Monday morning. I was 22 years old. I was told that my value to this family was conditional on my silence and my obedience. My mother's face went still. My marriage ended because I chose my safety over an image. That is not failure. That is the only sane response to an impossible situation. A woman at table 8 pulled her napkin to her face. Her husband put his arm around her without looking away from me. And my medical situation, I looked directly at Rachel, at the screen, at my mother, is not a punchline. It is my private life. And you put it on a 12-foot screen for entertainment at a wedding. The silence was absolute. A server holding a tray of champagne flutes in the kitchen doorway stood completely still. Then Eleanor Harrington stood up. She walked through the room, slowly, deliberately, the way a woman walks when she wants 300 people to understand exactly where she is going and why. She stopped beside me. She looked at the screen. At slide 4. At her own letterhead still glowing. Sarah Mitchell. Her voice was quiet. You're the analyst on the Harrington Foundation review. Yes, ma'am. She turned to face my father. Her voice carried the flat, surgical precision of a woman who manages a multi-million-dollar foundation and has attended enough boardrooms to know exactly when she's been deceived. Mr. Mitchell. The woman you just humiliated in front of my entire family is the professional I trusted with my foundation's financial security. The color drained from my father's face in real time. I wasn't aware that. You weren't aware because you didn't bother to know your own daughter. A ripple moved through the room. Someone at table 8 pulled out a phone. My father tried to recover, the way he always does after 30 years of practice. The warm smile. The reasonable voice. The country club handshake energy. Eleanor, let's not overreact. It was just a bit of family humor. You know how these things. Eleanor raised one hand. One gesture. That was all it took. Family humor. She repeated the words as though tasting something spoiled. You projected a woman's medical history onto a screen for 300 guests and called it humor. She turned to her son-in-law. Daniel. I think our families need to have a conversation. Privately. Tonight. Daniel stood up from the head table. He looked at Ashley. Ashley looked at her mother. Then Ashley looked at me, and said nothing to defend what her new in-laws had done. My father stepped toward Eleanor, dropping his voice to the register he uses in business meetings. The Harrington partnership, the foundation investment, let's discuss. Eleanor looked at him the way you look at something you have already decided to walk away from. After what I just witnessed, there is no partnership. My father's mouth opened. Nothing came out. His hand, raised in a half gesture of negotiation, dropped to his side. Slide 6 filled the screen behind us. The measure of a family is not how loudly they celebrate their favorites. It is how quietly they destroy everyone else. I picked up my clutch from table 17. I straightened my burgundy dress. And I walked toward the exit. Past my father, he didn't look up. Past my mother, she was staring at the tablecloth, her wine glass still in her hand, untouched for the first time all evening. Past Rachel, she turned her face away. At the door, a voice stopped me. Miss Mitchell. Eleanor Harrington stood near the coat check, keys already in hand, midnight blue jacket on. Monday morning. My office. We have an audit to complete. I nodded. She nodded back. And I walked out into the cold November night. Claire was in the parking lot with 2 gas station coffees. She slid into the passenger seat without a word and handed me one. I wrapped both hands around the cup. You okay? No. I stared through the windshield at the venue entrance. But I'm more okay than I've been in years. My phone buzzed. Lily, Grandma watched everything. Someone was live-streaming to the family group chat. She watched the whole thing from her living room in Raleigh. Sarah, she's crying. She says, that's my granddaughter. That's exactly who she always was. I closed my eyes. My grandmother. In her recliner in Raleigh. Watching. Proud. Another message. Daniel. I should have stopped it. I knew it was wrong and I didn't stop it. I'm sorry, Sarah. I don't know if that means anything right now, but I mean it. I didn't respond. Not yet. Some apologies need time before they can land. In the weeks that followed, I heard things secondhand through Lily. My father lost 2 business associates within the first 10 days. A commercial developer in Greensboro cited alignment concerns and pulled out of a joint venture. A contractor who had worked with our family for over a decade sent a polite letter about pursuing other opportunities. My mother was quietly removed from the Piedmont Charity Gala Planning Committee. No announcement. Just a brief email from Eleanor Harrington's assistant. We're restructuring the committee this cycle. Thank you for your past contributions. My mother called 3 committee members. None of them picked up. Rachel posted a public apology on Instagram. She deleted it 5 hours later. But people had screenshotted it. Daniel and Ashley entered couples counseling. Ashley had told him she would not build a marriage on the foundation of what happened that night. He agreed. 6 weeks after the wedding, my mother called. She didn't apologize directly. She said, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I waited. I think we handled some things badly. Some things. Sarah. Mom. My voice was steady. When you're ready to talk about what actually happened, not a version of it, not a softened summary, I'll listen. Until then, I need space. A long silence. Okay, she said. One word. The smallest possible beginning. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking. 3 months later, on a Saturday morning, I drove to Raleigh. No phone call ahead. No permission needed. No time limit. I just went. My grandmother answered the door herself, moving slowly, one hand on the frame, but her eyes sharp and bright as ever. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she pulled me inside. We sat at her kitchen table for 3 hours. She asked about my work, my townhouse, the tomatoes I'd been growing on my back patio. I told her everything. The GED I got while working double shifts. The scholarship. The firm. The promotion. The audit that apparently, in a roundabout way, had been protecting the woman who would one day stand beside me in a reception hall and say, "You didn't bother to know your own daughter." My grandmother laughed at the parts where I ate cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row. Nobody knocked on the door. Nobody said time's up. Outside the kitchen window, an oak tree spread its branches across the backyard, old and deep-rooted, the kind that survives every season because it put its foundations somewhere no one could reach. Today I am at my desk in Charlotte. Morning light through the window. Coffee in hand. The Harrington Foundation audit closes at the end of the month, on time, under budget, exactly as planned. Eleanor Harrington sent a handwritten note last week. Your family made a mistake. This profession didn't. I'm glad you're here. My grandmother is coming to visit next month. First time she's traveled since before the pandemic. She called to tell me she bought new walking shoes for the occasion. Daniel called last Sunday. He said, "I'm still figuring out how to be better. But I wanted you to know I'm trying." That's where it starts, I told him. That's all it is. Rachel has not called. That's okay. Not every story ends in reconciliation. Some end simply in the truth being spoken out loud in a room full of people who spent years pretending it wasn't there. I eat breakfast alone most mornings. Coffee, toast, the news, the sound of the city waking up outside my window. But alone is not the same as lonely. I learned the difference the night I stood up from table 17. They called me barren, divorced, worthless, a runner, a disappointment. I am some of those things. None of them define me. You don't need your family's permission to build a life worth living. You just need to stop asking for it. If you've made it to the end of this story, I think some part of it belongs to you, too. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been seated at the back, literally or figuratively, by people who were supposed to love you? And if you would have pressed begin, subscribe. There's another story coming that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about loyalty.